Hello, everyone. And today we have got the brilliant Rob Cairns from FundAFest. So, Rob, tell me a little bit about FundAFest. What is it that it does?
The core element of FundAFest is we want to support charity community events, and we also want to bring talented artists, artisans, crafters, reenactors, living history, people with their passion to the events that we try to attend or the events that we organise ourselves.
Okie dokie. And what does that result in? What's the impact that you try and have?
Um, there's multiple impacts from what we do. We often get told we sound too good to be true. What's the catch? And there isn't one. I just believe that if people are working together and partnering up together, it's going to deliver a better outcome. And with a better outcome means an event becomes sustainable. It helps organisations, not necessarily with just fundraising, but awareness about what that organisation may do, or multiple organisations. And if people get to see what's available on their doorstep and in their local area, they're more inclined to potentially be involved.
Hmm.
So without actually targeting mental health, poverty, diversity specifically, we sort of do it naturally, just as part of what we deliver, and it broadens people's horizons, it opens people's minds, and it's done in a way that's not sort of like beating them round with a stick and telling them this is what they should be doing.
Yeah, yeah.
Let them find it themselves.
Interesting. So talk me through what the service would look like. So if someone had never come across you guys before, what would a FundAFest program look like?
So if you came to me, for example, and said, or I approached yourself and said, look, we would love to put a festival on. Um, we we don't have the infrastructure in place. We don't have the time. Money's an issue. How do we do this? How do we do that? Red tape, insurance, all of these things become prohibitive to organisations putting events on, especially smaller to medium-sized ones. So a lot of time, goodwill is lost because of the administration or the barriers that are put in place, arguably to preventing good things like these happening. And I
Mm.
know barriers are there to protect people and help everyone. But in reality, it does often prevent things from happening in the first place. So we want to make that process a lot simpler and a lot easier. We can take to task what the organisation wants us to do. We're also there to support them and point them in the direction of what they should and shouldn't do,
Hmm.
or give them recommendations or suggestions. But at the end of the day, it's their event. So it's up to them what they have, what they would like to spend the money on, if they've got a budget. All we can do is try to guide them and make sure that they get value for money.
Interesting. So my mind now is full of different ideas, but I'm just thinking in terms of the people that are watching this, I think you are going to have some people who are watching and thinking, how can I get involved with what you offer from an event perspective? So if they're a performer or if they've got a particular service that would potentially tie in well, how would they get in touch with you and how do they get involved? So I'll ask that first.
I mean, the best we have a website
Hmm.
that's currently about to go under some massive changes because it's out of date. It's much easier to keep social media up to date than what it is a
Yeah,
web.
yeah.
So our Facebook page is Fundafests. Uh, if anyone can find that, that's the best way to get in touch. And they can see what we do, why we do it, and it could be a performer, an artist, a crafter, events planner, a charity, a business. We're very happy to work with businesses or corporates because they'll have family fun days,
Hmm.
and what we want to do is showcase talent and good causes to the people who've got the big money,
Yeah.
because the people with the big money may then end up supporting the little guys a lot more across the board.
Interesting. And then I guess from the other side, then, if someone's watching this who runs a charitable organization or, um, yeah, a good cause, and they're thinking, oh, we've got our summer fair coming up, and it's an absolute nightmare every year to organize. It costs a fortune, takes a load of our staff time. What's the process of them getting in touch with you? Do they need to have grants and money set up in advance to pay you, or what does that process look like?
each event's different. I'm always willing to have a conversation with people. I'm not the be all and end all of events. It may be I point somebody in the direction of somebody who's better qualified to do something. I'm a big believer in getting the right person to do the right job.
Mhm.
And if it was just a craft fair, I've got some fantastic people who can deliver that far better than what I could. But if it's a full festival that needs a craft fair, a fun fair, we're sort of there as like the umbrella,
Mhm.
to make sure all those things are looked after in the right direction.
Mhm.
Some events have budgets, some don't. We aim to try and bring sponsors, business partners, delivery partners, or apply for grants alongside the organisation. Because if we can make it so the money's there and it's cost the organisation nothing in a blue sky world,
Mhm.
um, that's the best case scenario for us because it makes it sustainable and it makes them want to work with us moving forward. The last thing we want is an event to happen once and not to happen again.
Mhm.
See it happen year in, year out the way it used to.
Brilliant. And I guess for people that haven't come across FundAFest before, I don't want them to be thinking that this is a small scale operation that you've got here. So how many buses have you transformed now?
I mean, that was the core of our business, but I realised that uh, if I could have the vast majority of the equipment required to turn up to an event, I would be able to pass on massive savings to the organisations I was there to help.
Mhm.
So having a double decker bus, which is converted into like the lower deck into a bar, ice cream van, food truck, upstairs into a stage full of lights, sound equipment, PA. That's saving an organisation thousands and thousands of pounds.
Mhm.
There are times where we do have to charge to be able to attend for that, but we're a lot cheaper than what it would be to hire it from somebody else. And that can be included in any grant or sponsorship packages that we look to attain. And with that, if you imagine, we also store out tents, gazebos, flags, things like that on the vehicle. So when we pull up, arguably within an hour, we could be set up to party. And when the event's finished, we're packed up again in an hour and we're gone. Whereas often, the infrastructure side of things, setting up and breaking down, a 1 day event could be a 5 day event for the
Mhm.
planet. We can make it a 1 day event, a 2 day event, and we're pretty much going to be picked up and gone with it straight away.
So tell me, Rob, about your startup process, because I can imagine equipment wise and insurance, all of that kind of stuff, that this would be challenging to set up from a lean business model perspective. It sounds like you needed the big chunk of money to get going. Is that the case?
It was, I mean, my background was originally banking.
Mhm.
Fortunately, I was really ill. I had a condition called Lyme disease. That was undiagnosed for a long time, which led to me having multiple other health issues, which were undiagnosed. And then when I was finally diagnosed, I knew where I needed to go. But the problem for me was getting the money to be able to, because I knew what I needed to do, why it needed to be done, how it should have been done. But if you haven't got 25, 50 grand, whatever, to plow into it, it's very difficult. Um, I have found grant funding very difficult because I'm quite out of the box with regards to what I do. I'm not a straightforward one-off project,
Mhm.
and I often get described as a facilitator rather than anything else.
Yeah.
Where I did start off properly was with a startup loan, which was £25,000. I bought a bus. I had a bus donated. I then was quoted ridiculous amounts of money for insurance and to get the work carried out. So we did the work ourselves on the bus. It was very rough. But I did, after lots and lots of research, find the right type of insurance policy. And these are so valuable lessons because a lot of people would fall into some deep money traps before they've actually had an opportunity to succeed. So it's always good to do a lot of research prior.
Hmm. Yeah, for sure. And what drew you to this? Because it's quite unique, isn't it, what you're doing? Are you an ex-performer, or what is it that you love about events that drew you
Uh,
to this?
I've always had a bit of a charitable nature to what I
Mhm.
myself. I do love talented, weird, and quirky people. If something's interesting, I want to know more about it or watch it, whether that's music, art, it doesn't matter. I like going to events. I like festivals. I like a party. I mean, like music, beer, food. What you ask for. If the sun's out, you're laughing. When I worked for the bank, I bought a pub and a restaurant. And I was the unofficial king of that village for a small period of time. That everybody wanted, like, it's your job to sort the park out. It's your job to sort the football team out. It's your job. So I did. And the first event I did was a wagon pull, and it was very successful. I knew straight away there would be nobody in the pub. So I took a barbecue in a bar. It was very successful. So much so, other organisations were coming to me and saying, "Can you do the same in our village? Can you do the same in our football club, etc." So, another business was born by accident through there, because we knew that there was money to be made, and that charitable and community organisations in particular were sort of getting ripped off. The case of, it's not their money; they're just writing checks. They don't necessarily do the proper research into cost, or they haven't got time to look into it, and they lose money. And if I can go in and save them money and do it in a cost-effective way, but also make my money myself, great.
Yeah, perfect. Happy days. And what is the legal structure that you set FundAFest up in? Are you happy with that as what you've got going now?
FundAFest's CIC. All the policies and procedures, don't ask us any questions on that. That's all paperwork somewhere else. But it was done in that format because we are very active in the charitable community, art and culture sector. We have to work with local authorities, community groups, etc. But we do have that private entity. We need to make money. I have to make a living. And so much so that we're now looking to expand. We've got the opportunity to franchise the organisation or license it.
Interesting.
We have been asked for years. I've been asked how do people do what I do, and I don't mind helping individual events. But as far as the franchising side of things is, it takes a lot of work pulling that information together and get it in a position that means if somebody did want to do what I do, i.e. buy the license to have a bus, operate, and we run behind the scenes. I mean, there could be a FundAFest in Cornwall, Scotland, Wales, but they'll have the benefit of have all the horrible lessons we've learned.
Yeah, absolutely. The shortcuts.
And I'm not saying I know everything, because I definitely don't, but there'll always be things that I will be learning or find out. But I would like to think I've made most of the big mistakes. And there's still a lot of little ones probably left, but the bigger ones hopefully are far behind me.
Yeah, for sure. And I think you've probably hinted a little bit there as to what does success look like for you? What do you want to see in the future for FundAFest?
Well, I want to see the model expand. There's lots of things happening at the moment which I can't even bore you with, because there's so much stuff happening. It's all for the positive. Biggest issue for me, as any organisation, has always been liquid capital. I've got companies giving me stock. I've got companies giving me equipment. I've got companies giving me support, and that's great. But that might all be sitting in a warehouse at one point because I haven't got the money to actually put it all on a bus, for example.
Yeah.
And it's extremely difficult. The computer says no is ridiculous. But I have learned about something called a storybook lender.
Okay.
I'd never heard of until 2 weeks ago. Where you still need a business plan, you still need a model. It still needs to add up. But they will actually look at it from an emotional side, I would guess. I.e., is that person passionate? Do we believe that person do it? Does the story match what's on paper? Because sometimes the story is far more compelling than what the numbers are, even if the numbers are good. But sometimes numbers look boring and people aren't interested. So if you can get that balance right, I believe a storybook lender story may be good for other people. Don't ask me who they are. You'd have to Google it and find them, because I'm still at early days. But I mean, one aspect of what we are looking at the moment is I've got the potential to take my own depot on, which, and this is the expansion side, Kate. So I'm not just going to be doing events me with one bus. If we take this depot on, we'll be upcycling vehicles ourselves and converting them into multiple different projects, not just for FundAFest, but if other organisations want a classroom, a soup kitchen, a homeless shelter built out of a bus, we can do that. And it basically means we can work with them with bid writers to make sure that they've got the money in place to deliver it, because we've got access to a fleet of vehicles that can be converted now. With this depot, we want it's big enough to host like 500 to 1,000 people. So even with several buses in, equipment in, we want it to be an event space as well, to work with colleges, universities, event organisers, planners, charities, and make it sort of an extremely alternative and contemporary event space. Where I've got 30 street artists at the moment who are looking to actually do murals on site.
Oh, brilliant.
And I'm looking for artists at the moment who've got big sculptures that are framed artwork, what would normally be destroyed at the end of a project, or they've got nowhere to store it. Fantastic. Come and hang it in my warehouse.
Oh, I think I've got some contacts I could give you for that, Rob.
I mean, artwork, and if they need it for a parade, come and get it, bring it back, hang it up, or we might replace it with something else. So the whole place could be a living artwork.
Oh, that's so cool.
And a place for where, because I'm sure there's artists out there who are really devastated all the time about having to let pieces of art go because there's just nowhere for it to be.
Yeah, I would absolutely agree with you. Interesting. Okay, so we've got 3 minutes left, and I want to ask you what your tips would be for people watching this that are at the start of their journey. Are there any lessons that you've learned that you would like to share your wisdom with the rest of the group?
You've got to know yourself. I think it's not for the faint-hearted. A lot of people think if they're coming at the charity or community sector, CIC, whatever it is, CIO, that it's all going to be Care Bears, candy floss, Father Christmas, the Tooth Fairy. It most definitely is not. You're going to find it a lot more difficult than what you think. It is extremely rewarding, and when it works, it's great. But it's a very competitive industry to be in if you're specifically looking for grants only. I would strongly recommend you look at having a good, strong business model that can get you by when you're waiting for grants or support or partnerships. Don't just be reliant on grant funding, because it will break you down. Yeah,
I would absolutely echo that. What a brilliant note to end on there, Rob. Thank you ever so much for your time and your wisdom. And we'll be posting this very soon. And if you've got any links or anything that you want us to share, then pass them over and we'll share them with everybody. But for now, thank you ever so much, Rob. And we'll speak to you again soon.
Thank you for all the best, Kate. Good luck.
Cheers. Thank you for joining today's chat. If you'd like to be featured on the next series, please email hello@junctionpoint.co.uk. Speak to you soon.